Okay, so today's project is a twofold one. First one is I want to change the lights in the dashboard. Put these on. You can see how very orange. These are like normal old filament bulbs, and I'm going to change those for LED replacements. Not only will that make these nice and white, it's going to be less load on the car for wattage wise. And the second thing is, to get to these we need to take the dash top off, which is quite a common thing that TVR owners are faced with. So we'll go through how you do that and how you can make it easier for yourself if you ever need to do it again. First thing to do is to take what TVR laughingly call the glove box off the Chim. You need to undo these screws, one each side. They've got them little white plastic caps on usually, and then this will flap down and there's an access hatch behind here, so we'll undo that first. Okay, so the flap's now hanging down. You can see there's access to all the joys under there. Now there are 3 bolts holding this on. One is approximately here, the second one is approximately there, and the third one, which is on the dashboard side, is about in that plane, kind of there. That's the worst one to find in my experience, and there are some tips as well for changing these around a little bit. So first thing I'm going to do is reach inside and try and feel for this one. You do have to be really careful inside these dashboards because there's tons and tons of spiky fiberglass which will impale it upon you. So be careful with this and that one. Also be careful that if it does pop up, there's a bloody great bolt here which will scratch the Jesus out of your nice leather. So you have to be careful when we take this top piece off that we don't damage the rest of the dash. So I'll start by undoing this one. Okay, so I've managed to get these 2 out. So these are the nuts that came off. For this you need a 10mm spanner, and they've also got these massive penny or repair washers on, because the holes that they go to, especially the one at the back, the hole it goes through is quite big. So the back one for me, if I count one vent in, is about 1 inch to the right of that vent going that way into this back piece from this piece, and then the one on the front is about here, so what, 2-3 inches to the left of the radio panel, going from here down, straight down into the void that's behind this piece here. Again, you have to watch here because there's all sorts of screws where they've screwed bits of relays and switches and all sorts into the top, which will then scratch the crap out of you when you're trying to get in there. I've actually found it easier to put my right arm, go backwards with my elbow and sort of like a trapeze artist go backwards into there, but I'm sure you'll find your own way of dealing with that. So just this one on this side to do now. So the one on the driver's side is kind of here, and it's a real pain to have to get up underneath there on the driver's side. There's lots of other stuff in the way, and the best way I've found is pretty much to go in upside down with your back on the seat squab and then reach up. Now I've actually put a wing nut on mine to make it easier to get undone, so hopefully it shouldn't take so long. Okay, and literally, I kid you not, seconds later, here we are with the washer and wing nut. Another advantage of the wing nut is that when you stick your hand up the dash, you can't help but find that thing. It feels so different to a normal nut, your hand kind of goes straight to it. So that was relatively easy. So as you can see now, it's quite loose. What I tend to do is lift it up and pull it away from the driver's side here, get this bolt out, and then very carefully lift it all away. So trying to avoid the fact you've got 3 bolts sticking out, which may not be razor sharp, but they're definitely sharp enough to damage your dashboard. Okay, dash is off. So now you can have a good look of where they are. So this is obviously upside down, so that's the one in the front which goes in that hole there. That's the one near the vent which goes through a hole there, and then the one near the driver, you can see I've cut that one down. I actually put a smaller Allen bolt in there, and that goes through that hole there behind the dash. Now what you do tend to find is when you take this off, I certainly always knock this LED board off. I'm going to try and find a way of maybe siliconing that on, but we'll come to that later. So what you need to do now is store this carefully somewhere safe away from the dash, and then we can continue with the bulbs. But if you just wanted to take the dash off to behold the beauty that is TVR wiring, this is the way you would do it. Just as a side note, someone on the Facebook Chimera forum said that when he did his, a piece of wood fell out and he wondered where it had come from. So right on the driver's side, there you go. It's probably that piece. It's held on with gunge, and I think it must be something to hold the dash piece in place, because there's a gap there to kind of grab hold of the dash top, so to grab hold of here, so it creates like a little slot for it to maybe not make the dash move when it's in. I mean, it's fairly solid anyway, but I suppose it's just another point of contact. Right, so I bought these are LED replacements for the same type of bulbs that are in the dashboard. So the dashboard ones are obviously old filament type bulbs, so they tend to be quite yellow and orangey as a light. And get one out. These have got, I mean, they look like a massive LED really. They've got an LED inside which is got some gubbins in, so these are set for 12 volts, so there's no need for any extra resistance or any fannying about like that. They fit straight in. Okay, so on the instrument panel, the thing you're aiming for is these things here with the black base on and a red and black wire obviously to power it. So on each instrument there's one of these. In fact, I'm pretty sure the speedo or the rev counter's got two, because they're quite big. In fact, I'm sure one of them's got two and one's got one, because one's always brighter than the other, isn't it? So I'm going to pull these out one at a time and replace the bulbs. Okay, so first one, bulbs in. I switched on the lights, it didn't come on because, like an idiot, I forgot that LEDs are polarity sensitive, whereas bulbs don't give a rat's. So if I turn it on, you can see the light comes on, and I've just had to swap those two wires around on the bottom to make that work, so I'll have to do that all the way across, I would imagine. So I'll go across and change them all. Okay, so another TVRism to deal with. The rev counter bulbs are completely different to the others, so they've got wires bent over the glass bulb, so that's a bit of a pain, but nothing ventured. I've pulled the bottom off one of the bulbs, the LED bulbs I bought, and so I pulled the bottom off one of the bulbs, and there is just a little resistor, so I'm hoping I can maybe modify this so it'll fit in those two sockets rather than have to wait with the dash off and get the proper bulbs. So update in a minute. Okay, so you can see there, you can see the tiny resistor that's inside, and I've done it so I've got two wires. I'm going to attempt to use this as a temporary bulb. If it works, it might not be temporary, but we'll stick it in the socket and hope for the best. Okay, so that was a set of mixed results. It works great. Problem is, when you push the bulb in, I think I got to the point where I pushed the bulb in and I kind of bypassed the resistor, because the contact the other side of the resistor touched the 12 volts, which made the LED go a lovely shade of blue and then fail. So I need to make sure I can't do that on the next one. So lesson learned there is, don't push it in too far. Okay, so I've managed to adapt one of the bulbs. There we go. Obviously I advise you to buy the correct ones, which is what I'll do when I get around to it. For now that works perfectly well, and will suffice for me showing you how this all looks when it's finished. Okay, so time to put the dash back on. This is the driver's side when I said I'd put a smaller bolt on there and use a wing nut. The other two at the other end go in fairly easily once you've got this end in, so we'll put the dash back on now. So dash is back in, so the best way to do it is to put that end in first. Tilt the dash up that way and push it in that hole. Make sure that that block of wood, if you've still got one, is the right side of this dash piece, i.e., you know, push it or pull it back so the wood goes behind that dash piece. Then make sure you've got your hand behind here, because that bolt is then in danger of hitting the back of here, and feed that into its hole, and then that'll just leave you this front one here, which you can see the hole and the bolt, so then you can just push that forward. So the only thing to do now is just put the nuts and bolts and wing nuts back on to fasten it down. I mean, it's reasonably tight, but it would rattle. Well, mine would anyway, so I like to have mine bolted down. Okay, so here we are at the end point. Nice white lights. As I said, only one light in the speedo, so that's a bit dimmer than the rev counter, which you've got two. Yeah, a great improvement, I think. I prefer this to the orangey yellow look. So, as far as I'm concerned, a great improvement.